And today we have our speakers, Ms. Sneha Vijayan. She's a Web3 lawyer, researcher, and founder of a startup Resolution, which leverages AI and blockchain tech to tackle NFT theft using decentralized dispute resolution. She handles the Res Educate program, which helps create awareness on NFT rights. She is a common law qualified lawyer who completed her dual degree in Law of Arts from NUALS Kochi in India and Masters in International Arbitration and Dispute Resolution from NUS Singapore. With her, we have Lorena, who is particularly interested in digital finance and environmental, social, and governance considerations relevant to technology and data-centric companies. In an unpredictable business and regulatory landscape, Lorena delivers strategic legal guidance to clients from throughout the blockchain environment. She aims to contribute real value. I welcome you both for the session today, and I'll be handing over the mic to our speakers. Yeah. You're on mute, Sneha.
Sorry. So thank you, Bhavya, for that introduction, and thank you all for attending today. Lorena and I are very happy and quite excited to talk to you about smart contracts, law, and beyond today. So let me just share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah. Okay, great. So today we will be dealing with the topic smart contracts, legal and beyond in 4 different categories. I will be talking about smart contracts first, what smart contracts are, what are the features of it, how it's formed and how it functions. I will then be talking about what traditional contracts are, how they're different from smart contracts, and why we require smart contracts in today's digital age. After which, Lorena will go on to discuss use cases of smart contracts with special emphasis on smart legal contracts. And finally, about how smart contracts are used with special emphasis on its issues and concerns.
Hello, everybody. Very nice to meet you, and I hope you'll enjoy today's session. So during our presentation, we will explore how blockchain and the smart contracts are changing the way contracts are used. The benefits of these technologies, such as lower cost, increased security, speed, and certainty, are making many companies and governments interested in them. Nevertheless, the main downsides to consider are related to the early stage of development. Also, due to their degree of automation and the wide range of uses, smart contracts may require different and innovative legal responses. So while smart contracts are unlikely to replace conventional contracts, they can be used in specific areas where they provide considerable benefits, as Sneha will show us further on.
So the term smart contracts is something that is not unfamiliar to any of us. In fact, if we were to search for smart contracts online, most of the search results will show you blockchain smart contracts or Ethereum smart contracts. But interestingly, the concept of smart contracts was conceptualized way back in 1994, much before the Bitcoin or Ethereum white paper by Nick Szabo in his blog in an article titled Smart Contract. So a smart contract essentially contains 3 components. They're predefined conditions, such as, which is usually in an if-then format, in digital form, and which can be automatically executed. Now, an example of this would be a very humble vending machine. So vending machines contain pre-programmed, predefined conditions. For example, it might have a certain condition which says if anyone were to insert $10 and click on a certain button, the smart contract would then exert a certain kind of snack. So the vending machine itself is an example of something that uses the basic smart contract. Here is the code for a smart contract, a vending machine smart contract. Now, in today's webinar, when we talk about smart contracts, we would be mostly referring to decentralized smart contract. The difference being that decentralized or blockchain smart contracts, with blockchain smart contracts, these smart contracts are recorded in a distributed network or recorded in the blockchain, making it very secure, immutable to a great extent, and even something that one can trust. But the benefits of smart contracts or blockchain smart contracts in particular is something we will look at later. This is the code for a blockchain smart contract written in Solidity. So now let's take a look at how a smart contract is formed. Now, in the little box, you will see that to create a smart contract, all you have to do is first identify the set of conditions that you require. So this could be such as, for example, if you were to create a vending machine smart contract, it could be if A were to insert X dollars and press N button, then this particular snack would be exerted. And once you have your conditions and you have coded it, you can finally deploy the smart contract. But if you were to create a blockchain smart contract, your journey does not end here. Essentially, you would be deploying the smart contract onto the blockchain where validators would review the particular contract, approve it, then add it onto a block, after which it is linked to rest of the blocks in the blockchain, finally giving you the blockchain smart contract. So how does a smart contract function, right? So this is an example of a basic NFT transaction. Here, if you look at the diagram below, you will see that A has certain crypto coins and B has a certain NFT. Here, A wants to buy B's NFT, and to be able to buy it, A has to pay a certain number of crypto coins to B. So they enter into a smart contract, which you will find on top here. And on the condition being fulfilled, the condition here being A transferring certain crypto coins to B, then the final result will be automated. So in the case of a smart contract, blockchain smart contract, as opposed to a regular smart contract like the vending machine, the peculiar, rather the important point here is that each transaction is added onto the blockchain. For example, the transaction involving crypto, as well as the transaction involving the NFT, is both recorded onto the blockchain, making that information, information pertaining to that smart contract very reliable. Now, the example that we saw right now is a very basic smart contract, blockchain smart contract, which only relies on information or assets which already exist within the blockchain. But what if you want to enter into more complex contracts, like an insurance contract, right? For example, let's say Lorena wants to fly out to India tomorrow, and she wants to buy a flight ticket. And with that, she wants flight insurance as well. And the insurance company promises Lorena that if her flight gets canceled due to bad weather conditions, Lorena will be fully compensated for her missed flight. Now, if you were to create the smart contract within the blockchain, there is no way for the smart contract to identify whether there has been a bad weather condition if Lorena's flight gets cancelled. So that requires some kind of mechanism for the blockchain to access information outside of it. Now, the reason we rely on blockchain is because information within it is very secure. So isn't it risky to rely on information outside the blockchain? So this is where oracles come in. So Chainlink is an example of a very popular oracle that is used in smart contracts, which helps people, or which helps gather data outside of the blockchain in a very reliable manner. So, for instance, if the smart contract wanted to identify what the weather condition of a particular day was, the oracle would gather that information in a reliable manner, approve it, and then pass it on to the blockchain so that the smart contract can execute depending on this external information. Now, there is another element pertaining to smart contracts that we can look at, which is escrows. So let's say in some instances, you're entering into a contract, you want to automate it, but you're just not ready to trust the other person on the other end, but a certain degree of trust is still required. An example of this would be, let's say, Lorena commissions me to create a painting for her. And for this, I require $100 as an advance to make sure that she actually pays me when I send her the painting. Because Lorena and I may not know each other well, Lorena might not want to pay me that advance. And because I am scared that Lorena might not pay me, I may refuse to start painting the painting without the advance. So here what you can do is you can link your smart contract into an escrow and then have Lorena transfer the $100 into that escrow. So I know that there's money locked away somewhere else, which would then be transferred to me on me performing the conditions. Now, there's one more element pertaining to smart contracts or pertaining to blockchain smart contracts that's rather interesting. That's identity verification solutions. So with some smart contracts, you might be required to identify certain identity or certain data points pertaining to one's identity. For example, let's say Hulu subscriptions are only given to persons belong to a certain geographical area, or online gambling is something that's only allowed for persons of a certain age. Now, if you were to convert contracts pertaining to this into smart contracts, there would have to be some kind of mechanism to verify one's identity. So identity verification solutions is something else that one could add to smart contracts to make it more efficient and effective. So now that we've looked at what smart contracts are and blockchain smart contracts are, it is only natural that we identify where these smart contracts or blockchain contracts really came from. So much before smart contracts or blockchain contracts existed, we had our plain old contract law. But why did we really require contract law? Let's take a look. Okay, so as you all know, all commercial transactions or commerce is driven by contracts, right? This could be something as simple as the I agree button that you click when you subscribe for Netflix, or it could be the I agree button that you click on when you want to buy something on Amazon, or a very complex contract which countries might enter into to buy commodities like oil from each other, right? So contracts are very crucial in the global economy. Unfortunately, human nature is such that it's easy for us to break our promises if we feel that it is in our benefit to do so. So when people have a tendency to break their promise, it naturally creates distrust and prevents people from entering into contracts, or prevents people from relying on that promise and entering into commercial relationships. So this is where legal contract law comes in, and courts and other external agencies come in. And contract law has been developed so that if one were to enter into a commercial contract with someone, there is always that protection under contract law that in case there's a breach, courts or other external agencies would step in. But what's the main difference between traditional contracts and smart contracts, right? On the face of it, it isn't all that different. Both contain predefined conditions and promises. One is stored digitally. The other, on the other hand, could be stored on paper. It could even be oral, although it is advised that you don't rely on oral contracts. And the crucial difference between the two is that while smart contracts can be automatically enforced, traditional contracts will have to be legally enforced. What this means is that with smart contracts, once a condition is met, the final result is automated, as in the case of the NFT example you saw, or even the vending machine example. With traditional contracts, if one were to choose not to fulfill their promise, then an external agency like the court would have to step in. Now, this is the primary reason that, that traditional contracts are not enough in today's digital world. So let's take a look at why this is so. When you have an automatically enforced contract, breach is very minimal. Parties don't really have any room to refrain from fulfilling their promises because it is automated. However, with legally enforced contracts, parties may in fact choose to breach it. For example, let's say I agreed to give Lorena a certain NFT, which Lorena has agreed to buy from me for $100. Now, this is a physical contract where we will be manually transferring the NFT. Now, we decided to transfer the NFT and also the dollars on the 1st of September. Unfortunately, on the 30th of August, the crypto market crashes, crypto prices go down, and with it, the value of NFTs also go down. So the value of my NFT on the 30th of August is $10. And then Lorena decides, why should I pay her $100 when this is worth just $10? It's not like I paid her any money, right? So to her, it is more beneficial to not purchase it from me. So parties actually have the liberty to breach the agreement in the case of traditional contracts. Now, the second point is something that we're all familiar with: third-party interference. When you talk about blockchain, no intermediaries is a term that we easily throw around, and the same applies for smart contracts as well. So with traditional contracts, if there's a breach, you require court or another external agency to really step in and tell the party who has breached to either compensate or make good the loss that the injured party has suffered. But with smart contracts, because the final result is automated, third parties are really not required. Finally, when there's a breach of a conventional contract or a traditional contract, often you're required to go to court, and that requires legal representation. And with smart contracts, third parties are not required, and much like that, legal representation is also not required. So this brings me to my next slide, which is benefits of smart contract. So because smart contracts are automated, it is fast because your result is immediate. It is cost effective because you don't have to rely on intermediaries or lawyers. It is digitally recorded. And if it is on the blockchain, it is transparent, provided it's on a public blockchain. It is extremely secure because of how the blockchain works. And to a great degree, it is immutable. So now that you have an idea of how smart contracts and specifically blockchain smart contracts work and the benefits of them, Lorena will talk to you about the use cases.
Yeah, so I will dive in some numbers. So we can remark that, after this, this is like a joke because everybody's using smart contracts nowadays. So, but now looking at some numbers, we can remark that as of 2021, the global smart contracts market was valued at $315.1 million US, but is projected to reach $1,460.3 million by 2028. So generally speaking, global smart contracts companies would include IBM, Oracle, Infosys, and Solana, and many more. But we should know that the top 3 companies hold a share of over 52%. Actually, North America is the largest market with a share of about 43%, followed by Europe and Asia Pacific. Then we can see on the other side slide, on the basis of the type, the market is segmented into Bitcoin, side chains, NXT, and Ethereum. In terms of application, the market can be classified into banking, government, management, supply chain, automobile, real estate, insurance, and healthcare. As you can see from the following slide, the wide spectrum of industries where blockchain is adopted shows that smart contracts have a broad socioeconomic reach and impact. So when talking about smart contracts on the basis of their nature, one should distinguish between 4 types of smart contracts. This classification also shows that there are many types of business models and structures which aim to replace classical forms of intermediation. To begin with, smart contracts can be combined with, the other one, okay, thank you. Can be combined with other smart contracts to provide decentralized governance of autonomous ecosystems. The decentralized autonomous organizations, also known as decentralized autonomous corporation, is an organization that is run through rules encoded as a smart contract. We can remark how smart contracts are envisioned as the foundation of a new kind of economic entity and corporate models. A DAO, like a company, may have stock ownership, corporate governance procedures, payroll plans, and almost all of the economic aspects of an enterprise, all of which would run automatically and entirely distributed. These organizations carry out activities and actions while complying with the rules of smart contract and making decisions. When artificial intelligence technology is used with DAOs, for example, they may be able to make independent choices. So, but there are some problems and concerns regarding the decentralized autonomous organizations, like their legal status. Are they simple corporations or more? And what is the liability of DAOs and their founders? Secondly, smart contracts can provide the main functionality of applications, which are called decentralized application or dApps. The concept of decentralized applications has grown in popularity as a result of Ethereum and its smart contract functionalities. A decentralized application is a type of application in which the basic functionality is stored in smart contracts and the code is available to users, typically as open source. As a result, users do not have to trust any entity. They can verify the code to understand what it is, what it does, and because it is predictable and runs on the top of the blockchain system, they can believe in its faithful execution. Thirdly, looking at the synergy between blockchain and other technologies, we may say that the Internet of Things could ease the use of blockchain technology by storing all communications between smart devices securely. Actually, one example would be that of The washing machine created by IBM and Samsung, a washing machine that orders its own detergent when it runs low, using Internet of Things and blockchain technologies, proving that what started as an experiment is now widely accepted. Also, another example, with the rapid rise of mobile wallets and the Internet of Things, payments can be made via Internet of Things or smart devices in real time. Despite not being widely implemented yet, there is a great potential here, I think. So the fourth class of smart contracts is legal smart contracts. It is possible to use smart contracts to define and execute a contractual obligation legally binding, as Sneha has already detailed. So a smart legal contract can be defined as a legally binding contract in which some or all of the contractual obligations are defined in and performed automatically by a computer program. As Sneha has already explained, it is common for smart contracts and especially smart legal contracts to follow a conditional logic involving objective and specific inputs. If X occurs, then execute Y. So moving forward, the smart legal contracts can take many different forms and have a variety degrees of automation. So in the first case, a smart legal contract may be written in a natural language agreement with code-assisted performance. A smart legal contract, on the other hand, in the third example, can be written entirely and executed by code. Also, a smart legal contract can fall somewhere between these two extremes and take the form of a hybrid contract, which includes both a plain language and coded terminology. So different types of smart legal contracts involve various legal concerns. For the purpose of highlighting the process of embedding and adopting smart contracts in our legal system, we have selected different initiatives that provide tools to create legal agreements. Yeah, here are some initiatives identified by us, which are promoting the use of smart contracts, especially legal smart contracts in our daily routine, our daily business. So some of them would be Accord Project, Be Next, Open Law. Also, Australia has some standardization coming up in this field. And there are some templates from a big consulting companies. And we can see that companies and organizations are preparing to make this move towards adopting smart legal contracts, but first of all, understanding the technology. So to sum up, speaking of smart legal contracts, their legal status is still uncertain. It is important to bear in mind that despite the fact that there is no specific legislation on such issues, this does not mean that current laws and the general principles of law may not be applicable to them, or that they are unregulated at all. The applicable legal norms shall be determined case by case. I will try to briefly outline some legal questions that may arise using smart contracts. So I think that the greatest problem is related to the legal status of these technologies and the legal consequences implied by them. The applicable law will have a strong influence on the legal recognition of smart contracts as regular contracts within the current contract law definition. In any case, we have to remember that by entering into a smart contract, parties undertake to perform the obligation therein predefined. Some other problems we have thought about are about lacking formal legal requirements. So as Sneha has previously described, the smart contract would be just a set of line code, and so it's different from the regular contract by language. Also, the parties in the smart contracts, we don't know the parties, and also we don't know if they have the capacity to enter into contracts. And also there could be some problems in regard to signature of the contracts. In smart contracts, the signature is electronically executed, but in some cases, some legal contracts may need that signature to be authenticated by a notary, for example. Another problem would be to the performance modification and remedies of the contract because of the inflexibility of the smart contracts. We will have a problem when the parties are changing their minds and don't want to enter in that agreement and want another agreement. And also we will have some problems to establish the impediments to performance. Then about the enforcement, we do need dispute resolution mechanisms globally recognized, like online dispute resolution platforms. Some other problems concerning the using of smart legal contracts would be the privacy issues and also consumer protection. We don't have any specific regulation, and consumers are exposed to vulnerability issues like hacking, and we also know about the Ethereum problem in 2016. With the DAO, for example, which was hacked. Yeah, so also, and not the last, will have some scalability concerns. Wrapping up, our goal was to make an introduction to smart contracts. As we have said, the smart contracts is a set of lines of code defined and executed inside a distributed blockchain. Smart contracts enable more complicated transactions between two or more parties to be carried out without the requirement for a central authority, enforcement mechanism, or legal advice. So smart contract benefits go hand in hand with the blockchain. Speed and accuracy, building trust, security, savings, transparency. Nonetheless, some contracts pose a number of legal and regulatory difficulties, such as applicable legislation, consumer protection, taxes, and of course, the illegal, in some cases, the illegal use of blockchain technology. My personal conclusion will be that although there is significant evidence that smart contracts will eventually enjoy a widespread adoption, we should not assume anything about their technical or legal trajectories during the next few years. Sneha, do you have something to add? Thank you.
Thank you, Lorena. Yes, I just wanted to add that smart contracts, specifically legal smart contracts, can have a huge impact in global commerce, specifically because by automating contracts, the cost of performance is greatly reduced, the chances of breach is reduced, which in turn is increasing trust and facilitating or giving people the confidence to enter into more commercial activities. And more importantly, I would say that smart blockchain smart contracts eventually enable blockchain dispute resolution, and dispute resolution can be an extremely expensive and time-consuming affair, especially with cross-border transactions. And by automating this contract execution, not only can we avoid disputes, but even if we were to require dispute resolution, you can use smart contract to automate dispute resolution as well, in turn helping people cut down more costs and time, which makes both dispute resolution and complex commercial contracts accessible to wider array of people who have very limited resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I would like to open the floor for any questions our attendees might have. You might put it up in the Q&A session. Anything for our speakers? Okay, meanwhile, wait, like I have one question. Like it was a very interesting session for me as well to get started on, because I've never seen like smart contracts as a way of substitution for legal contracts. So how do you think this coming up in a country that is not necessarily democratic? Like how do you think are people going to react to this?
Shall I go ahead, or do you want to take it? Lorena, so okay, I'll take that one, and then maybe Lorena, you can chime in as well. So, okay, that's a very interesting question, Bhavya. So, for me, I'd only considered smart, or rather for this webinar, I'd only considered smart contracts in a commercial context. But if you were to look at it for public matters as well, like for instance, if the government were to issue a tender to the general public, and then you wanted to have a democratic process, but because of certain unequal power in the system, they decided, those with more power have the liberty to make sure that the whole process is not transparent. Smart contracts can actually be, smart contracts specifically in the public blockchain can actually be a nice something to fall back on to ensure democratic processes. You also find, although not in the legal context, but you also find great uses of smart contracts in matters such as voting, which I think would be great in such instances. Lorena, if you'd like to.
So yeah, so we have to make the distinction between smart contracts, like the code, the software, and the legal contracts, which is an agreement between parties. Okay, there are situations when smart contracts can be smart legal contracts, like we have described, and can be legally enforced. But the smart contract, after all, is just a software. So and it depends upon us if we want to recognize their effects. But any activity we do in the online may in the blockchain, let's say, when we enter into specific, let's say, smart contract actions, this can have legal consequences, and they will be considered each case by case. So I don't think that now we are in the phase of the replacement of the traditional contracts as we know them. It is very hard, and I don't see it in the near future or in the future at all, because not everybody is digitalized yet. So we also the agreement between us in our words is more simply to be transposed and translated into obligation and rights. So now I can see the both paths, like path roads, the legal contracts as we know them, and the smart contracts like a technology to develop and be more discovered by the companies. Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. I think that answers my question. And as Sneha mentioned, like a lot of use cases have been coming up in the voting space as well. It makes me rethink about the whole petition situation and how smart contracts could change that as well. Yeah. I think we have one question from our audience. They're asking for any resources that will make it easy to interpret or understand terms of a smart contract for non-technical folks.
So regarding the interpretation, sorry, Sneha.
Go ahead, Lorena. That's it.
The terms are, it depends on the smart contract. Like if it is a DApp, decentralized application, you will have some terms and conditions, right? So if it is a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, you will have some other conditions. They are really hard to understand, and also the interpretations can be different from a jurisdiction to another jurisdiction depending on the applicable law. So now we are assisting to some good practices that are being developed by the companies, and also the blockchain sandbox of regulations. So we are actually in the early stage of development, and this is very hard to digest for everyone, and we are trying to learn step by step.
Yeah, just to add, so if you had very simple, smart legal contracts or smart contracts, like in the case of transfer of an NFT, right? If you are a techie or if you understand code, so if it's pertaining to transfer of an NFT in the Ethereum blockchain, if you know how to, if you know Solidity as the programming language, then you get a better understanding of what the different conditions are. But for a non-techie, it becomes very difficult. I mean, even as a lawyer who does not really understand code, I wouldn't know the terms of it until someone translated the code to English or general language. There's another interesting concept called Ricardian contracts that you could look into, which actually makes drafting contracts much easier because you don't necessarily know how to code. I believe open law uses them. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from our attendee. Is there a relationship between smart contract and IP?
Okay. Okay. So that's quite a broad question. So in IP refers to intellectual property. So there are discussions about how certain contracts can be coded to protect one's IP or matters relating to someone's intellectual property. For example, regarding music, right? Okay, you might be familiar with the term royalty. So when you create music and then you want to license it out or let people use it, a pre-blockchain, what you'd have is a conventional traditional contract that would say that you would get a certain amount of royalty for using it. Now, with smart contracts, you can actually program the contract in such a way that each time somebody listens to music, royalties can be automatically accumulated and transferred to the person who owns that particular song. And not just with royalties, even with other aspects, right? There is a school of thought that IP contracts, like NFTs are a huge example of art being used in the Web3 blockchain world. And questions relating to copyright, about how the artwork or art of the NFT can be used is something that's increasingly being discussed. And there is one school of thought which says intellectual property rights relating to this For example, who has the right to actually use the art in the NFT? These are things which can be embedded into the smart contract. I hope that answers your question.
I don't have too many things to add, but I would say that we have regarding the smart contracts, the blockchain and IP, we should bear in mind that the smart contracts are in the most cases open source, so you can use them freely, and you can see them in the GitHub. You already know that. In what regards the templates of smart contracts and if they are subject to IP. Yeah.